The furnace had been burning since before sunrise. It never truly slept, even during the deepest hours of the night. When Murano lay quiet beneath the stars and the narrow canals reflected only moonlight, a bed of glowing embers remained hidden inside the ancient brick chamber, waiting, breathing, remembering. The workshop had learned patience long before Vittorio was born. The walls themselves seemed to hold memory. Decades of heat had darkened the bricks. Wooden beams overhead carried the scent of smoke and salt air gathered over generations. Every tool hanging from the wall occupied a place worn smooth by thousands of familiar hands. Some workshops felt like buildings. This one felt like a living thing, and every morning, before the island fully awakened, the furnace greeted the day first. Always the furnace, always the fire. Vittorio had learned that lesson as a boy, long before he understood the chemistry of glass, long before he knew the names of tools, long before he could shape anything worth keeping. His grandfather had stood beside him one cold winter morning and placed a rough hand upon the warm brick. "Listen," the old man had said. At 14, Vittorio had expected instructions. Instead, he received silence. The furnace hummed softly, nothing more. He looked at his grandfather. "What am I listening for?" The old man smiled. "The same thing you'll spend the rest of your life learning." Years later, Vittorio finally understood. The lesson had never been about sound. It had been about attention. Now, 47 years later, he still began each day the same way. He arrived before the others, unlocked the heavy wooden door, stepped inside, and paused, not to inspect the workshop, not to begin working, simply to feel the room, the warmth, the air, the rhythm. A glassblower who rushed this moment, his grandfather believed, was already behind schedule. Outside, dawn slowly approached Murano. The island remained quiet. Most visitors knew Murano only through daylight, tour boats, busy workshops, crowded demonstrations, gift shops filled with sparkling chandeliers and delicate sculptures. But before sunrise, Murano belonged to the people who lived there, to fishermen preparing their boats, to bakers opening ovens, to craftsmen walking empty streets toward workshops that had existed longer than entire countries. This was the island Vittorio loved most, the one tourists rarely saw. He crossed the workshop slowly. The stone floor held traces of yesterday's work. Tiny fragments of cooled glass glittered near one workstation like pieces of frozen starlight. They would be swept away later. For now, they remained where they had fallen. Small reminders that creation was never perfectly clean. The furnace glowed brighter as he approached. Orange, gold, white at its center, like a tiny sun hidden inside brick walls. Heat rolled outward in gentle waves, not harsh, not uncomfortable, simply present, a constant companion. For nearly half a century, this warmth had shaped his days. He could no longer imagine life without it. Vittorio rested his hand upon the long metal blowpipe hanging nearest the furnace. The tool felt familiar in a way few objects ever become, like a favorite chair, like the handle of a well-used door, like the hand of someone you have loved for many years. Thousands upon thousands of hours had transformed a simple tool into something that felt almost alive. Not because it changed, because he had. Outside, the first birds began their morning songs. Across the lagoon, Venice slowly emerged from darkness. Its towers and rooftops appeared gradually through pale blue dawn, as though painted into existence one careful brush stroke at a time. The water between the islands remained perfectly calm, holding reflections, holding light, holding time, much like glass itself. His grandfather used to say there were two kinds of craftsmen: those who wanted to leave their mark upon the material, and those who wanted to discover the shape already waiting inside it. The first group often became famous. The second created work that lasted. Vittorio had spent his life trying to belong to the second. The furnace breathed, the workshop waited, and beyond the windows, morning continued its slow arrival over Murano. Another day was beginning, another conversation with fire, another chance to transform something molten and formless into something that might outlive the hands that created it. And somewhere inside the glow of the ancient furnace, hidden beyond heat and flame and memory, a story was waiting to be told. When Vittorio was 14 years old, he believed glassblowing was about strength. The men in the workshop seemed larger than life. Their forearms were thick from years of turning heavy blowpipes. Their faces glowed orange in the furnace light. They moved with confidence through heat that felt unbearable to anyone standing nearby. To a boy watching from the corner, they looked invincible. His grandfather disagreed. "Strength is the least important thing here," he would say. Then he would point toward the furnace. "The fire doesn't take care how strong you are." At 14, Vittorio thought this was another one of the old man-ass mysterious lessons. Years later, he would understand. The furnace treated everyone equally, young or old, master or apprentice, patient or impatient. The glass responded only to attention, nothing else. His first day in the workshop had begun before sunrise. The streets of Murano were still dark. The lagoon reflected only moonlight. A cold wind drifted across the water, carrying the scent of salt and distant seaweed. Vittorio remembered being nervous, not because of the work, because of the responsibility. In Murano, becoming a glassblower was not simply learning a profession. It meant joining a chain that stretched backward through generations. Every workshop carried stories. Every tool carried fingerprints. Every furnace carried memory. And now he was expected to become part of that memory himself. The thought frightened him more than he admitted. His grandfather unlocked the workshop door and stepped inside. No speech, no ceremony, no grand welcome. The old man simply handed him a broom. "Start there." Vittorio stared at it. "A broom?" His grandfather nodded. "A workshop that cannot care for its floor cannot care for glass." The boy had expected molten fire. He had expected glowing masterpieces. Instead, he spent 3 hours sweeping, then another hour cleaning tools, then another carrying supplies. By noon, he was exhausted, and he had not touched a single piece of glass. That evening he finally asked, "When do I learn?" The old man smiled. "You already are." For weeks, Vittorio watched. That was his real education. Not doing, watching how experienced craftsmen turned the blowpipe without ever looking at their hands. Watching how they judged temperature by color alone. Watching how they knew exactly when to remove a piece from the furnace. No rulers, no timers, no machines, only experience, only observation, only trust. One afternoon, nearly a month after he began, his grandfather finally allowed him to gather molten glass for the first time. Vittorio still remembered the feeling, the heat, the brightness, the strange, glowing mass at the end of the pipe. It looked alive, like captured sunlight. His hands trembled. Too much. The pipe tilted slightly. The glass sagged, then collapsed completely onto the metal table below. The workshop exploded with laughter, not cruel laughter, warm laughter. The kind that welcomes you into a tradition of mistakes everyone has made before. Vittorio's face burned hotter than the furnace. His grandfather simply nodded. Good. The boy asked. "You've ruined your first piece." The old man smiled. "Now we can begin." Looking back, Vittorio realized that moment taught him more than success ever could. Glass does not reward perfection. It rewards persistence. Every master in Murano carried thousands of failures hidden behind a few beautiful pieces. Visitors never saw them, but they existed. Collapsed bowls, cracked vases, broken stems, shattered sculptures, entire days of work lost in seconds. The failures were not separate from the craft. They were the craft. Outside the workshop windows, seasons changed. Summer brought bright mornings and crowded canals. Winter brought fog, dense, silver fog that erased the horizon and made the lagoon feel endless. Vittorio loved those winter mornings. The world seemed quieter then, smaller, more focused. The furnace became the center of everything. A warm island within an island. His grandfather often worked without speaking for hours. At first, Vittorio found the silence uncomfortable. Then, gradually, he began to appreciate it. The workshop already contained enough conversation. The crackle of heat, the turning of tools, the soft hiss of cooling glass, the distant sound of boats moving through water. Nothing needed to be added. One evening, after everyone else had gone home, the old man handed Vittorio a small piece of clear glass. Not a vase, not a sculpture, simply a smooth sphere, perfectly transparent, the size of a walnut. The boy held it carefully. It caught the firelight and transformed it into something softer, something gentler, almost magical. "Do you know why I made this?" his grandfather asked. Vittorio shook his head. The old man looked toward the furnace. "Because clear glass has nothing to hide behind." The sphere glowed in the warm light. No color, no decoration, no distraction. Only craftsmanship, only honesty. The old man smiled. "And honesty," he said quietly, "is always harder to make beautiful." Many years later, standing beside the same furnace, Vittorio still remembered those words. The workshop had changed. Workers had come and gone. Tools had been replaced. Customers had arrived from every corner of the world. But that lesson remained: honesty, patience, attention. The three ingredients hidden inside every piece worth creating. Outside, dawn finally broke across Murano. Golden light touched the surface of the lagoon. The water answered with thousands of tiny reflections. Inside the workshop, the furnace continued its patient breathing, waiting, as it always had, as it always would. And beside it stood a boy becoming a craftsman, one quiet lesson at a time. The first piece Vittorio ever kept was not beautiful, at least not by the standards of Murano. It was uneven. The neck leaned slightly to one side. The base was thicker than it should have been. A tiny bubble sat trapped inside the glass, visible only when sunlight passed through it at a certain angle. Visitors would never have noticed. A master certainly would, but Vittorio kept it anyway. For nearly 50 years, it sat on a shelf near the furnace, not displayed proudly, not hidden away. Simply present, a reminder every craftsman needed one, a reminder of where skill begins, not with mastery, with mistakes. The day he created it had started badly. Nothing seemed to cooperate. The furnace temperature fluctuated. A delivery of sand arrived late. One apprentice dropped an entire tray of cooling pieces. Another accidentally cracked a week's worth of work. Even the lagoon outside appeared restless, waves striking the stone embankments harder than usual. The workshop felt unsettled, like a clock running slightly fast. His grandfather noticed it immediately. The old man always noticed, not because he watched people closely, because he watched carefully. There was a difference. One required attention, the other required understanding. Near midday, Vittorio ruined another practice piece, then another, then a third. Each collapsed differently, each failure felt larger than the last. By afternoon he was angry, not visibly, but enough that his hands became less steady. And Glass notices everything. Come outside, his grandfather said. The boy frowned. We still have work. The old man smiled. Exactly. They walked toward the edge of the canal. Boats drifted quietly across the water. Laundry hung between buildings. A fisherman repaired a net beneath the shade of a weathered wall. Nothing extraordinary, only ordinary life continuing. His grandfather pointed toward the lagoon. What do you see? Vittorio shrugged. Water. The old man nodded. And what is it doing? The boy looked again. Moving. Fast. No. Slow. Not really. The old man smiled. Exactly. They stood silently for a while, watching. The lagoon moved without effort, without force, without frustration. It simply followed its nature, around boats, around docks, around islands, never fighting, never stopping, always continuing. Years later, Vittorio would realize this was one of the most important lessons of his life. Glass behaves the same way. The harder you force it, the less cooperative it becomes. The more patiently you guide it, the more willingly it reveals what it can become. Back inside the workshop, his grandfather handed him another blowpipe. No speech, no instructions, only another opportunity. The molten glass gathered at the end of the pipe. Orange, bright, almost too bright to look at directly. The furnace reflected in its surface like a miniature sun. Vittorio turned the pipe slowly, steadily, listening to the rhythm of movement he had observed for months, not forcing, not rushing, simply following. For the first time, something felt different. The glass seemed calmer, or perhaps he was. The distinction hardly mattered. Minutes passed. The shape emerged gradually. A small vessel, nothing ambitious, nothing remarkable, just a simple form, balanced, patient, honest. When it finally entered the cooling oven, Vittorio felt no excitement, only relief. The kind that arrives when effort and attention finally begin moving in the same direction. The next morning he examined it in daylight. The flaws were obvious. Many flaws. A master could list dozens. Yet something about it felt complete. Not perfect, complete. His grandfather studied it for several moments, then nodded. Keep it. Vittorio blinked. Why? The old man smiled. Because one day you'll need to remember this version of yourself? At 14, the answer made little sense. At 61, it made perfect sense. The small vessel remained on its shelf through every stage of his life. It watched apprentices arrive. It watched masters retire. It watched tourists fill the island. It watched winters cover Murano in fog. It watched summers fill the canals with sunlight, decade after decade, quietly, patiently. Sometimes visitors noticed it. They would point toward the shelf. "Did you make that?" Vittorio would nod. When, many years ago, some smiled politely, others looked confused. Why would a master keep such an imperfect piece? Why not replace it with something better, something worthy of display? The answer was simple. Perfection teaches very little once it arrives. Imperfection never stops teaching outside. The morning continued unfolding across Murano. The lagoon shimmered beneath the rising sun. A delivery boat moved slowly between islands. Church bells echoed faintly through the cool air. The workshop awakened around him. Workers arrived. Doors opened. Tools were lifted from hooks. The day began. Vittorio glanced once more toward the small glass vessel on the shelf. The sunlight caught the tiny trapped bubble inside. For a brief moment it glowed like a distant star. A flaw, a memory, a lesson, still present after all these years. Still reminding him that every masterpiece begins as something unfinished, and that sometimes the most valuable thing a craftsman can keep is proof that he once had much to learn. By the time Vittorio turned 18, he had learned something that no book could teach. Glass was alive, not literally. Not in the way birds or trees were alive, but it responded, it remembered, it revealed things about the person shaping it, and it never lied. That was why the old masters respected it, not because it was beautiful, because it was honest. The tourists who visited Murano often believed the most difficult part of glassblowing was the heat. Standing near the furnace, they would immediately step back. Their faces flushed, their eyes widened. Some laughed nervously, others shook their heads. Impossible, they would say. I could never work here. Vittorio always smiled. The heat was not the difficult part. The heat became familiar. What never became easy was patience. Patience could not be learned in a day, or a month, or even a year. Patience was built the same way glass was shaped, slowly, carefully, one moment at a time. His grandfather often spoke very little during work, but every now and then he would offer a lesson, not as an explanation, as an observation. One afternoon, while shaping a delicate bowl, the old man suddenly asked, "What color is the glass?" Vittorio looked. Orange. His grandfather shook his head. "What color?" "Bright orange." Again. The old man shook his head. The answer clearly wasn't tea enough. The old craftsman rotated the pipe slowly. The molten glass glowed in the furnace light, changing every second. Golden, amber, white, orange again, then darker, then brighter, like a sunset trapped inside a bubble. Finally, his grandfather smiled. The color isn't the lesson. What is the change? The old man pointed toward the glowing mass. It never stays the same, not for a moment. Neither do people. At the time, Vittorio thought the lesson was about glass. Years later, he realized it was about life. The workshop itself changed constantly. Apprentices arrived. Apprentices left. Some became masters. Others discovered that they belonged somewhere else. The furnace remained. The walls remained. The lagoon remained. Everything else moved. Everything else changed. One spring, a young apprentice named Marco joined the workshop. He was talented, very talented, perhaps too talented. His first pieces looked better than Vittorio had after several years. Everyone noticed, especially Marco. Talent can be a gift, but sometimes it becomes a trap. Marco rarely listened, rarely observed, rarely asked questions. He assumed speed was mastery, and mastery was success. One evening, he completed a large vase that impressed everyone. Tall, elegant, nearly perfect. Visitors admired it. Other apprentices praised it. Marco smiled all evening. The next morning, the vase had shattered. Not dramatically, not loudly. A tiny weakness hidden inside the glass had expanded during cooling. By sunrise, the entire piece had fractured. Days of work disappeared overnight. Marco stood silently before the broken fragments. The workshop remained quiet. Nobody laughed. Nobody criticized. Every craftsman understood. The furnace teaches everyone eventually. His grandfather knelt beside the shattered vase, examining the pieces carefully. Then he picked up one fragment, holding it toward the morning light. Beautiful, he said. Marco looked confused, but it as ruined. The old man nodded. Yes, then why beautiful? His grandfather smiled. Because now it can teach you. Years later, Vittorio still remembered Marco's face at that moment. Not disappointment, understanding. The beginning of understanding. The moment skill starts becoming wisdom. Outside, Murano continued through another season. The lagoon sparkled beneath afternoon sunlight. Fishing boats crossed narrow waterways. Church bells drifted across the island. Laundry moved gently in the breeze. Life unfolded at its usual pace. Inside the workshop, the furnace glowed. Steady, patient, unconcerned with success or failure. Only process. Only attention. Only time. Vittorio often thought the furnace resembled the lagoon. Both appeared calm, both appeared predictable, yet both carried enormous depth. The surface revealed very little. The truth existed underneath. As the years passed, he began noticing details he once ignored. The way heat moved through a room, the sound cooling glass made during quiet evenings, the subtle difference between confidence and carelessness, the way experienced craftsmen touched tools, the way true masters watched. Observation became a language, and eventually, that language became instinct. One evening, near sunset, his grandfather handed him a freshly finished glass bowl. Simple, clear, perfectly balanced. The old man placed it beside Vittorio as first saved piece. The uneven little vessel, the one with the trapped bubble, side by side. The difference was obvious. Years of experience separated them, years of mistakes, years of patience, years of learning. His grandfather looked at both pieces, then at Vittorio. Which one matters more? The young man pointed toward the flawless bowl. The old man smiled, then shook his head. The first one. Vittorio frowned. Why? The old craftsman rested a hand on the shelf, because the second could never exist without the first. Outside, the sun slowly descended toward the horizon. Golden light spread across the Venetian Lagoon. The workshop windows glowed. The furnace glowed. Even the glass itself seemed to glow, as if the entire island had become part of the same warm light. And standing there, between fire and water, between youth and experience, Vittorio began understanding something that would guide the rest of his life. The purpose of mastery was not perfection. The purpose of mastery was learning how to remain a student, no matter how many years passed, no matter how skilled you became, no matter how beautiful your work appeared, because glass never stopped teaching, and those willing to listen never stopped learning. Summer arrived slowly in Murano. Not all at once, not with a sudden burst of heat, but little by little, until one morning the island simply felt different. The air carried a softer warmth, the lagoon reflected a brighter sky, and sunlight lingered longer upon the water each evening before finally surrendering to night. Vittorio was 23 that summer, old enough to work without supervision, young enough to believe he still had endless time ahead of him. The workshop had become his second home. Perhaps, if he was honest, it felt even more familiar than the apartment where he slept. He knew every sound inside those walls, the creak of the front door, the rhythm of the furnace, the metallic ring of tools touching the workbench, the faint hiss that came when molten glass first met cooler air. Each sound belonged exactly where it was. Together they formed a kind of music. A music only craftsmen seemed to hear. Tourists filled the island during summer. They arrived by boat from Venice. Families carrying cameras, couples holding hands, travelers searching for souvenirs they hoped would outlast their vacations. Many entered the workshop with the same expression: curiosity, wonder, a little disbelief. They watched as glowing glass emerged from the furnace, watched it spin, stretch, expand, transform. What appeared impossible one moment became real the next. A vase, a bowl, a sculpture, a piece of light frozen into shape. Children were always the most fascinated. Adults often tried to understand the technique. Children simply watched, completely absorbed, the way people watch fire, or waves, or falling snow, without needing explanations, without needing reasons, only wonder. One afternoon, a young boy stood near the demonstration area long after everyone else had left. Perhaps 9 years old, quiet, observant. His parents waited outside, but he remained, watching. Vittorio recognized that look immediately. It was the same look he himself had worn many years ago, the look of someone who was not merely seeing, but listening. The boy pointed toward the furnace. "Isn't it dangerous?" Vittorio smiled. "Very." The boy's eyes widened. "Then why do you do it?" For a moment, Vittorio considered giving a simple answer. Instead, he looked toward the glowing furnace. The fire moved behind the opening like liquid sunlight, alive, ancient, patient. Finally, he replied, "Because some things are worth learning slowly." The boy seemed to think about that, then nodded, as though the answer somehow made sense. Years later, Vittorio would forget the boy's face. He would forget the date. He would forget what shirt the child had been wearing. But he would remember that conversation. Because sometimes the simplest questions reveal the deepest truths. Outside, summer continued unfolding across the lagoon. The water sparkled beneath endless blue skies. Fishing boats drifted between islands. White gulls circled overhead. The city of Venice shimmered in the distance, rising from the water like a dream that had somehow become permanent. On especially warm evenings, Vittorio remained after closing, not because he had extra work, because he enjoyed the quiet. The workshop felt different when empty, larger somehow. The absence of voices revealed details normally hidden beneath conversation. The crackle of cooling glass, the gentle hum of heat inside brick walls, the distant sound of water moving through narrow canals. One such evening, he carried a wooden chair outside. The sun was setting. Orange light spread across the lagoon. The surface of the water transformed into a field of gold. Every small wave carried fragments of reflected sunlight. Thousands upon thousands of moving stars. His grandfather joined him a few minutes later. Neither spoke. They simply watched. The old man had always understood that silence shared between people is different from silence experienced alone. It feels fuller, warmer, more complete. After a long while, his grandfather finally broke the silence. "Do you know why Murano survived?" Vittorio glanced at him. The question seemed unusual. "There are many reasons." The old man nodded. "Yes." Then he pointed toward the water. "But mostly because of patience." The lagoon stretched before them, calm, endless, unhurried. People think great things are built through ambition. His grandfather continued. Sometimes they are, but things that last are usually built through patience. The old craftsman looked toward the workshop, toward the furnace, toward generations of knowledge passed from one pair of hands to another. A single day changes very little. A single year changes more. But 50 years, he smiled, 50 years changes everything. The sun continued descending. The sky shifted from gold to ember, then ember to deep blue. One by one, lights appeared in windows across the island. Small points of warmth against approaching darkness. Vittorio watched them quietly. At 23, 50 years sounded unimaginably distant. An entire lifetime, a horizon too far away to see clearly. Yet somehow, sitting beside his grandfather, it felt closer. The old man seemed completely at peace, not because life had been easy, because he had stopped fighting its rhythm. He moved with time rather than against it, like the lagoon, like the furnace, like glass itself. The evening breeze drifted across the water, carrying the scent of salt and distant cooking fires. A boat moved slowly through the canal. Its wake spread outward in gentle ripples before disappearing into the gathering darkness. Eventually, they stood. The workshop behind them had cooled slightly. The island had grown quieter. Night was arriving. As they walked back toward the furnace, Vittorio looked once more across the lagoon. The last light of the day rested upon the water, fading, softening, becoming memory. And although he did not know it yet, many years later, when the workshop belonged to him alone, this would be one of the evenings he remembered most clearly. Not because anything extraordinary happened, but because nothing did. Only a sunset, a conversation, a grandfather's voice, and the slow understanding that a meaningful life is often built from ordinary moments repeated with care. The furnace still glowed, the workshop still waited, and somewhere beyond the darkening lagoon, another summer night was beginning. The first time Vittorio saw Lucia, she was standing beside the canal with a sketchbook in her hands. It was late afternoon. The sunlight rested gently on the water, turning the lagoon into a sheet of moving gold. She wasn't watching the boats. She wasn't watching the tourists, she was drawing. Vittorio noticed her several times over the following weeks, always in a different place. A small bridge, a quiet square, a bench near the water, and always with the same sketchbook, always observing, always listening to the world before putting it onto paper. One evening, as he left the workshop, he passed her again. She was sketching the reflection of the sunset in the canal, not the buildings, not the sky, only the reflection. Vittorio stopped, curious. "Why draw the reflection?" he asked. Lucia looked up and smiled, a calm, warm smile. "Because it disappears first." The answer surprised him. Simple, yet somehow true. The two stood quietly for a moment, watching the water. Over the months that followed, they met often, sometimes by accident, sometimes intentionally. Neither seemed in a hurry. The island was small. Life moved slowly. There was no need to rush. Lucia loved painting. Vittorio loved glass. Soon they discovered they were doing something very similar. Both spent their days chasing light. She captured it with color. He captured it with molten glass. Neither could hold it forever, but both tried. One summer evening, Vittorio invited her into the workshop after closing. The furnace still glowed softly. The room felt warm and peaceful. Lucia walked between the workbenches slowly, as though entering a church. She stopped before a clear glass vase. The surface reflected the firelight in hundreds of tiny flashes. "It looks alive," she whispered. Vittorio smiled. "Sometimes I think it is." Lucia left quietly. The sound filled the workshop more gently than any conversation. And for the first time, Vittorio imagined a future that extended beyond the furnace, beyond the workshop, beyond himself. Outside, evening settled over Murano. The canal darkened. The first stars appeared above the lagoon. Inside the workshop, fire and glass continued their ancient conversation. And somewhere between the glow of the furnace and the quiet sound of Lucia's voice, a new chapter of Vittorio's life quietly began. The years passed quietly, not quickly, not slowly, simply the way years do when life finds its rhythm. The workshop continued to glow each morning. The lagoon continued to greet the sunrise, and Lucia became part of Vittorio's days as naturally as the tide became part of the shore. One evening, after the workshop had closed, Lucia suggested they take a boat across the lagoon. No destination, no plan, only movement, only water, only the fading light of another summer day. The small wooden boat drifted gently away from Murano. Behind them, the island grew smaller. The furnaces became distant orange lights. The church tower stood quietly against the darkening sky. Everything seemed softer from the water, Further away, more peaceful, Lucia rested her hand on the edge of the boat. The lagoon reflected the colors of sunset: gold, amber, deep blue, each color slowly replacing the last. "Do you ever think about leaving?" she asked. Vittorio smiled. Many people had asked him that over the years. Tourists especially. They spoke of Rome, Paris, London, places filled with excitement, places filled with opportunity. But every time he imagined leaving Murano, something felt incomplete, as if a piece of himself would remain behind, not trapped, simply belonging. He looked across the calm water. Ivy never wanted to be anywhere else. Lucia nodded, as though she already knew the answer. The boat continued drifting. No engine, no urgency. Only the gentle sound of water against wood, the kind of sound that encourages silence rather than conversation. Above them, the first stars appeared, small points of light scattered across the sky. Their reflections shimmered faintly upon the lagoon. For a moment it became difficult to tell where the water ended and the heavens began. Vittorio thought about the furnace, the workshop, his grandfather, the years already behind him. Life felt different now, not larger, not smaller, just clearer, like glass after the final polishing. When they finally returned to Murano, the island was quiet. Most windows were dark. Most boats were tied securely along the canals. The world seemed ready for sleep. Before they parted for the night, Lucia looked toward the distant workshop. A faint glow still escaped from one of the windows. The furnace, always awake, always waiting. It never sleeps, does it? She asked. Vittorio smiled. No, Lucia laughed softly. Just like you. Together they walked through the quiet streets beneath the stars, and somewhere behind them, beyond the bridges and canals, the furnace continued its patient breathing, keeping watch over the island, as it had for generations, as it would for generations more. Winter arrived quietly. One morning, Vittorio opened the workshop door and discovered that the world beyond it had almost disappeared. The lagoon was hidden. The distant islands were gone. Even the nearest canal seemed to dissolve into pale gray mist. Murano looked smaller in winter, more intimate, as if the island had folded inward upon itself. The furnace felt warmer during those months, not because it burned hotter, because the cold outside made every bit of warmth feel precious. Workers gathered closer, conversations became softer. The glow of molten glass seemed brighter against the darkness of short winter days. Vittorio loved these mornings. Tourists were few. The streets were quiet. The canals belonged once again to the people who lived beside them. Fishermen moved through the fog-like shadows. Boats appeared silently, then vanished again into the white distance. Everything felt slower, gentler. One afternoon, Lucia visited the workshop carrying a small package wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a painting, a simple one, nothing grand, nothing meant for galleries, just a winter scene of Murano hidden beneath fog. The details were barely visible. A bridge, a lantern, the faint outline of a boat. Most of the painting was mist, empty space, silence captured in color. Vittorio studied it for a long time. "It is beautiful," he said. Lucia smiled. "Most people say there is not enough to see." He looked at the painting again, then toward the workshop windows where fog drifted outside. "No," he said quietly, "there is exactly enough." She laughed softly, the same laugh he had come to love over the years. Warm, easy, familiar. That evening, after closing, Vittorio hung the painting near the furnace. Visitors rarely noticed it, but he did, every day, especially during winter. As the years passed, the painting remained. The fog returned each season. The furnace continued burning, and Murano continued floating peacefully upon the lagoon. Some mornings, before anyone else arrived, Vittorio would sit alone with a cup of coffee and watch the mist beyond the windows. The world outside would seem uncertain, undefined, half-hidden, yet somehow beautiful because of it. Life, he realized, was often the same. You rarely saw the whole path ahead. Most of the time, you could only see a few steps forward. The rest remained hidden, like boats moving through winter fog, and somehow that was enough. The furnace glowed softly, the fog drifted beyond the glass, and another quiet winter day settled over Murano. When Vittorio turned 50, people began calling him a master. The word followed him through the workshop. Visitors used it. Young apprentices used it. Even customers from distant countries used it. Yet each time he heard it, he felt slightly uncomfortable. Not because it was untrue, because he still remembered being 14, still remembered dropping molten glass, still remembered sweeping floors before touching a single blowpipe, still remembered the small crooked vessel on the shelf. The workshop had changed over the years. New tools had arrived. Old craftsmen had retired. Young apprentices now stood where Vittorio once stood, watching, learning, making mistakes, beginning their own journeys. One winter afternoon, a gallery owner from Venice visited the workshop. He carried an unusual request. He wanted a centerpiece, a single vase, not large, not extravagant, but exceptional, something that captured the spirit of Murano itself. The gallery owner offered a generous payment, far more than the workshop usually charged, but the money interested Vittorio less than the challenge. How do you capture an island in glass? How do you shape water, light, fog, memory, and time into a single object. For several days, he made no attempt to begin. Instead, he observed the lagoon, the changing sky, the reflections in the canals, the way morning fog softened distant buildings, the way sunset painted gold across the water, the way moonlight transformed everything into silver. Only then did he approach the furnace. The first attempt failed. The shape felt wrong, too perfect, too controlled, too distant from the living island he wanted to represent. He melted it down, started again. The second attempt lasted longer, but something was missing. A piece can be technically flawless and still lack a soul. That was the problem. The vase looked beautiful, but it felt silent. So he began again. Days passed, then weeks. Visitors came and went. The furnace continued burning. Outside, winter slowly gave way to spring, and still Vittorio worked, patiently, quietly, without rushing. One evening, as the workshop emptied, Lucia stopped beside him. The unfinished vase stood cooling nearby. She studied it for a moment, then smiled. "This one is closer." Vittorio looked up. What changed? Lucia considered the question, then pointed toward the surface of the glass. "It feels less like something you ray controlling," she smiled, "and more like something you ray listening to." The answer reminded him of his grandfather, of the furnace, of the lagoon, of every lesson he had spent a lifetime learning. The following morning, he began again, and this time, something felt different. The glass moved naturally. The curves emerged without force. The light inside the piece seemed to find its own path. Not dramatic, not flashy, simply balanced. When it was finished, the vase appeared almost simple. Clear glass, gentle lines, subtle reflections. Nothing about it demanded attention, yet everyone who saw it paused, just for a moment, as though the piece carried a quiet presence difficult to explain. The gallery owner returned several days later. He stood silently before the vase, then nodded. No long speech, no negotiation, only a quiet nod of appreciation. After he left, Vittorio watched the piece disappear onto the boat crossing the lagoon. He felt proud, but not because it was his best work, because it represented something deeper. A lifetime of mistakes, a lifetime of patience, a lifetime of learning how to listen. The boat grew smaller against the water. The vase disappeared from sight, and the lagoon continued moving beneath the afternoon sun, steady, calm, unhurried, exactly as it always had. For a long moment, Vittorio stood at the workshop door watching the horizon. Then he smiled, turned around, and returned to the furnace, because tomorrow another piece would begin, and there was still much left to learn. That evening, After the workshop had grown quiet, Vittorio locked the door and stepped outside. The sun had already disappeared beyond the horizon. Only its memory remained, a soft glow lingering above the lagoon. The water moved gently through the canals. Small ripples carried reflections of distant lanterns, stretching them into long ribbons of gold across the dark surface. Vittorio began the familiar walk home, the same route he had followed for decades, across the small bridge, past the old bakery, along the narrow canal where boats rested quietly against weathered stone walls. He knew every corner, every lamp, every sound, not because he had memorized them, because they had become part of him. The evening air carried the scent of salt water and distant wood smoke. Somewhere, a church bell rang softly. Then silence returned, the comfortable silence of a place settling down for the night. As he walked, Vittorio thought about the years, not with regret, not with longing, simply with gratitude. The furnace, his grandfather, the workshop, Lucia, the countless pieces of glass that had passed through his hands, some broken, some forgotten, some carried across oceans into homes he would never see. He realized that every piece had left something behind, not in the glass, in him. Every success, every mistake, every lesson, every ordinary day. Together they had shaped a life just as surely as he'd shaped molten glass. When he reached the bridge overlooking the lagoon, he stopped for a moment. The water below reflected the first stars, the same stars that had watched over Murano for centuries, the same stars his grandfather had once seen, the same stars that would remain long after him. And somehow he found comfort in that thought. Life did not need to last forever to be meaningful. A glass vase did not last forever. A flame did not last forever. Even a workshop would one day belong to someone else. Yet that did not diminish their beauty. It was part of it. Vittorio smiled, then continued home beneath the quiet Venetian sky. Later that night, after tea with Lucia and a final glance across the moonlit canal, Vittorio stood by the window. Murano was asleep. The boats barely moved. The water seemed almost still. Even the wind had grown quiet. Across the island, the workshop remained dark. Yet deep inside the furnace, hidden behind brick and iron, a small bed of glowing embers still remained, patient, warm, waiting for morning. Vittorio imagined the workshop resting peacefully, the tools hanging in their places, the workbenches empty, the shelves lined with glass that caught faint traces of moonlight. Everything exactly where it belonged, everything at peace. For a moment, he remembered being 14 years old, standing nervously beside his grandfather, listening to the furnace for the very first time. trying to understand what the old man wanted him to hear. Now he finally knew. The lesson had never been about glass, or fire, or craftsmanship. It was about attention, about noticing the quiet moments that most people hurry past. The reflection of sunlight on water, the warmth of a furnace before dawn, the sound of someone you love laughing softly in the next room, the comfort of returning home after a day of honest work. These were the things that mattered, not because they were rare, because they happened every day, and every day offered another chance to notice them. Outside, the lagoon reflected the moon. Inside, the apartment settled into silence. Lucia had already fallen asleep. The island rested beneath the stars, and somewhere in the darkness, the furnace kept its final glow alive until morning. Vittorio closed his eyes. The years behind him felt peaceful. The years ahead no longer needed to be counted. Like the tide, like the lagoon, like the gentle light inside cooling glass. Life would continue in its own rhythm, and that was enough, more than enough. The water moved softly through the canals. The stars watched from above. The furnace waited patiently for another dawn, and Murano slept beneath the night sky. Quiet, warm.